You all know that yesterday the date was October 4th. Does anybody know whose special feast day October 4th is? Anyone? Yes, Allie? St. Francis of Assisi. And as a Franciscan, it's one of our high holy days. And I celebrated by praying at the football game and having dinner with some friends last night. But one of our confreres sent me this in particular for the feast of St. Francis, who loved animals. It says, if you can start the day without caffeine, if you can be cheerful, ignoring aches and pains, if you can resist complaining and boring people with your troubles, if you can eat the same food every day and be grateful for it, if you can understand when loved ones are too busy to give you time, if you can look over people taking things out on you, if you can take criticism and blame without resentment, if you can conquer tension without medical help, if you can relax without alcohol, if you can sleep normally every night, then, my friend, you are probably the family dog. There is a fable about the angel Gabriel, who has just come from surveying the earth and its inhabitants, when he reports to God, Lord, it's my duty to inform you that you're the possessor of a choice piece of real estate known as the planet Earth. But the tenants you've leased it out to are destroying it. In another few years, it won't be fit to live in. They have polluted your rivers. The air is fouled with the stench of their over-consumerism. They frequently kill one another, and all the prophets you've sent to them calling for an accounting have met with violence. By any rule of sound management, Lord, you've got but one option. Then, raising his trumpet to his lips, Gabriel asked, shall I sound the eviction notice now, sir? And God said, no, Gabriel, not just yet. I know you're right, but I keep thinking, if I just give them a little more time, they'll quit acting like they own the place. If I were to entitle my homily tonight, I probably would call it Great Expectations. Great Expectations. Any of you ever work in a vineyard or in a winery? Do you have any idea of what it takes to go, well, first of all, what it takes to produce something as, imagine this to be real, as beautiful and succulent as these wine grapes? Weeding, pruning, hoeing, make sure you got nice sunshine and rain, and keeping the birds away and the animals away. And then once you are ready to harvest, you're picking by hand and trying to avoid the yellow jackets who want these grapes as much as you. And you put them into a vat, and it becomes this ugly liquid after you squeeze it. And a few weeks, a few months, and maybe you can put it into a barrel, and then in a few years, it becomes this clear, lovely bottle of wine. It's a lot of work, a lot of time. You can imagine how the tenants of that landowner and that vineyard owner felt. They were doing all the pruning. They were doing all the picking. They were doing all this hard labor, and somehow they started to think that this belongs to us. We are the rightful owners, not the landowner, not the vineyard owner. It should be ours. We've labored so long, we've done so much. And the vineyard owner was not very happy. My brothers and sisters, this lovely parable has some ramifications for us to talk about our relationship with God. Somehow we feel that we do everything on our own and we owe God very little. But happens on Ash Wednesday when you get the ashes put on your forehead, the words, remember that you are dust, and unto dust you shall return. Dust. That's all we are. That's all we have. That's all we can claim. Job says it a little more poetically. Naked I came forth from my mother's womb, and naked I shall go back again. The Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. All that we have, my brothers and sisters, all that we are belongs to God. And it's up to us to give back to God all that we have, all that we possess. All of our time and talent and treasure somehow we think belongs to us. And it doesn't. God asks us for an accounting. God asks us to give back what we've been given and all that we have. How do we give back? Whenever a service opportunity arises, maybe we could give our time. Maybe we could do something for somebody else. We're always looking for musicians or choir members, greeters, Eucharistic ministers, lectors to give back here at Mass. Anytime there is a need, we should be giving back to God because everything we have is God's gift. Another perspective on the gospel parable. In 1978, a man traveled to Cincinnati to attend the funeral of Max Eller Bush. Max had been like a father to this man for 20 years. Nothing unusual, except that as a 15-year-old, this man had taken his mother's car and struck and killed Max's 5-year-old son a week before Christmas. Soon after the accident, a surprised court heard Max ask that charges be dropped. Instead, he wanted to give the death car driver a job and help toward his education. Max did all that and more, virtually adopting the 15-year-old boy into his family. Max shared his home, his time, and understanding with the troubled youth. We might wonder, how could Max do that? Maybe we could never befriend a wild teenager who had just killed our 5-year-old son. Max might have been a little crazy to go out of his way to become like a father to that boy. But if Max Eller Bush is crazy, then so is God. In the parable, the landowner is God. We are the tenants. And God sent all of his prophets and servants, and none of them came back alive. And finally, God loved us so much that he gave us his only Son, who suffered and died so that we could have the fullness of life. And sometimes, quite frankly, we don't appreciate it. God's love is unconditional for us. Whether we are thankful to God for all that we've been given or not, whether we're virtuous or filled with vice, God still loves us unconditionally. Maybe, my brothers and sisters, this parable